Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you all had a great summer, despite the unusual weather, even challenging weather, as you might say. And of course, when it comes to challenges, overseeing the operations of the library always presents new challenges and rewards. This year in particular, I think we're going to see a lot of time and effort devoted regarding the physical plant. Starting with today's presentation on potential HVAC project, which would be far-reaching and really revamp entirely how the building is cooled and heated. Plus, you already know about the accessibility project, which is well on its and a joint effort with the city. So these two things just exemplify that moving forward requires all our efforts and engagement on the various projects that face the library, not the least of which is doing our individual part financially. And that regard, as some of you have already gotten the pledge solicitation letter from me along with the form. I think that that's an important way to show our commitment to supporting the library, one, leading by example, and two, a very practical note, and some grants and other financial assistance require, or one of their criteria is financial support from the Board of Trustees and Board of Directors. So it has a very practical impact as well, besides providing needed resources for the library. And I think our engagement this year will be all the more important if we go forward with the HVAC project, which as you can imagine, will require no small amount of money to implement fully. And even if we don't do everything, it will still be high six figures. So it's important for us as trustees to participate, do our part in being the name and the face of the library in our respective communities. That includes working on fundraising efforts. Far smaller in scale, but also important is supporting the periodical appeal. You may have seen some of them, may have gotten notes about that. Not a lot of money involved in supporting helping fund the various periodicals that the library provides to our patrons, but it has a big impact and benefit. So I encourage you to do that. I'll just say that I have signed up for that already, and I think it's money well spent. I'd also like to just say, identify or note a couple of special kudos to the PFL management and staff for the summer. The children's department continues to be a beehive of activity from what I read. 2,000 people total roughly for 20 events. That's a pretty good number to figure out on an average basis. And I'd say it's great that we're having high use of the museum and park passes. Gives opportunities for people who otherwise might not be able to take advantage of those great aspects or pluses of living in Maine. So all great work for that. And I think it's just something that just shows again how well how engaged we are in the community. Since we don't yet have our
facts that we share. You've run 15 minutes.
Okay. Well, let's go then. Let's move on to the secretary's report. And open it up for discussion and comment.
I have a comment.
Yes.
It shows that I was not here.
Okay.
In fact, I made some motions in the.
You are just channeling somebody, Eileen. Yeah. Oh, and let me add one other thing before we go further. And I am the first one to be a bad example about this, but Eileen is attaching her trustee name tag. I forgot mine. I'm sorry. It's because it's the summer lull. So let's try to remember to do that in the future and whenever we're in the library. So Anyway, sorry.
No, I was present as well at the last.
All right. Anything else from the minutes?
Under the development report, where I'm, commented about emailing people at the annual fund, wasn't what I said or meant to say, I didn't say it, was about emailing people to acknowledge their donations to the annual fund as effective, part of the stewardship.
Okay,
And that's, it was the donations, not about the donating.
okay.
So I'd just like to say, emailing people to acknowledge their donations to the annual fund. And Eileen was definitely here because you talked about calling people and I said, for the email.
Yes, I remember.
Ellie was very pleased according to this. Okay. All right, are there any other changes, edits, comments about the minutes from June? Not, is there a motion to accept the minutes with the changes as noted?
So moved.
Tommy, first, second, Leah, all in favor, say aye or
Aye.
raise your hand. Oh, okay. Got a little bit out of the sync here about the adjustments to the agenda. One is that once the representative from EMC is here, we'll go right to his presentation as soon as it's possible, so that since that's a fairly involved presentation, and we have the time to look at it and discuss it. So,
Carl, there was one trivial matter that we wanted to add from the finance committee about the movement of the.
oh yes, you're right. Yeah, we'll put that in.
That's like a 30-second.
Yeah, yeah, right. Thanks for reminding me, Tommy, about that. Okay, well,
Can I check on, policy and personnel said that there was no meeting, we did meet yesterday.
okay,
That's just the one.
okay. The librarians report.
Okay, all right. So I have invited Mary Randall, our head of Children's Services, to give you all a summer reading wrap up. As you can see from the statistics that Mary put in her monthly report, it was a very great, very successful summer reading for all ages. We had participation from all the towns and all ages. So, so I wanted to just Mary to share a little bit with you about that. So take it away.
I will ask, would you like me to stand or should I remain seated for this? Does anyone have a preference?
Whatever you're most comfortable with.
Perfect. I will remain seated. Yes, I will use my diaphragm to support. So hello, my name's Mary. I think I've met all of you throughout my time here. Hello again. This is my first summer here at Patent Free, and first I have to say the community is amazing. It really is. The parents and the kids who come to the library love this library, and it's been a joy to work with it so far. So I'm really grateful for that and grateful for all that you do. So I will speak to some numbers now. So in the monthly report, I put in a little beautiful pie chart with the very sort of nitty gritty breakdown of all of the numbers of everyone who participated, both adults, young adult, and juvenile. So we had a relatively strong showing with Bath, as was expected. I believe Woolwich was the next biggest, which was a lovely little surprise for me. But you can sort of look at the breakdown. It was definitely juvenile heavy in terms of who came out to support, which I think is expected. I know in a lot of libraries, summer reading, people see it as a juvenile, as a children's department sort of initiative, which I don't think is necessarily incorrect. And it's definitely showing that in the numbers. However, I think that, there are some adults who definitely love their summer reading as well, which is great. So I will give more specific numbers for our overall program attendance. So I actually undersold myself a little bit. I was looking at my numbers for attendance of programs. So we had 67 programs
67.
Because 67 programs, I counted it out because there's 3 programs that I run a week, every week, all the time. The 20 programs were the additional ones that added on. So really it was like 47 of mine, 20 of other people's who came in. So it was quite a lot. We were very busy, obviously. It was a lot of numbers. We had 2,750 participants for our summer reading programs, which was and that's just the children's numbers so to add on to the adult programming as well. In the children's department proper, we had about 1,545 reference transactions. And that is, again, a ballpark number, as when you are in the children's department, which I'm sure all of you have seen it at its most bustling, there is one child asking you 17 questions, a parent asking you 10, so you're very, very busy. And I always tell my staff at the end of the day, add in a few more reference transactions because you never know. I'll give a little rundown of some of the fun programs that we did have that were highly successful. Kind Kids came. They are a musical duo. It's Rob Duquette and her name is Amanda Panda. And they bring puppets that they make and they sing songs. They're a sort of locally loved duo that they perform at the Chocolate Church. They do work with them. So I sort of enticed them to come on over and they played in the gazebo. It was June 29th, so early on in the summer. And we had about 85 people come and it was packed. And I gotta say, I had never heard them perform before, but they were lovely. They are called Kind Kids because a lot of what they talk about is kindness. And they have a couple songs that get the kids to calm down. It was very impressive. They really had the audience in the palm of their hands. What we also did were a couple series programs that were series. So we had 4-H, the Summer of Science. There were some college students who came in and ran some science, a mystery program where they were solving a scientific mystery together, as well as High Touch, High Tech came in and did another sort of series program. So overall, I mean, attendance was absolutely insane. There was not a program that we ran that didn't have almost full capacity. Like we can only fit 59 people in here, I think. And that happened a lot where we would be like, all right, we're right on the cusp. So overall, this was an incredibly successful summer, I would say. We had a lovely ice cream social at the end to say thank you. It was pouring rain, but we still had 65 people come and eat our ice cream. Also, side note, there is still ice cream in the freezer. So summer reading was really a success. And I think what helped us a lot was this year, I did a soft tweak on the format. So we have the, I don't know if you all saw the sheets. Did any of you participate in summer reading this year? Still start, but you should absolutely do it. It's one, for adults as well, but you basically read 15 minutes and you fill out a bubble and it follows a path. And once you've filled out the whole sheet, you turn it in and you get entered in to win a raffle at the end. And just for turning in your first one, you get a little gift certificate to spend at the library bookstore. Can you tell I did that spiel a lot this summer? So we had, this summer, however, I decided because the theme was all together now, which I'm sure you've heard said many times, I wanted to sort of create a summer reading game program that would foster a sense of literacy that wasn't merely literary literacy. So we wanted social literacy, emotional literacy. There were a lot of activities that required a sort of communal, like visiting Bath Central, sort of talking to a family member, reading something, listening to a story, recommending a book, telling a joke to a librarian, kind of fostering the sense of community. I will say, meet me, say hi sometime and I'll tell you some of my favorite jokes that I got over the summer. So, there was that gentle tweaking. We got a lot of really good anecdotal support from that. For the younger kids, maybe who aren't quite big readers yet, but still want to participate, a more familial sense with the summer reading program itself. But overall, the numbers were lovely. The support was amazing. And the staff, I have to say, shout out to my staff. They are incredible. They did such a great job. The joy they brought to the desk, the joy they brought to all of our programs, the yes and sort of attitude for the whole thing was just remarkable. And that goes for, you know, all of Patent Free for sure. So that's my little summer reading wrap up. It was very, very successful, and I hope you'll all participate next year. Thank
Any
you.
questions for
Yes,
Mary? Yeah,
please.
Can I just make a comment? I wrote on the float with the staff members, and the response, it was just lovely to watch the response of the kids as they saw their librarians go by. And they were waving at us. They were just so excited. And so they obviously have made a super connection with the kids in the community. Really.
Thank you.
Kudos.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. I was going to make a comment from your report. Now I can tell you directly. I wanted to acknowledge your comments in the report about encouraging your staff to seek professional development, and also your efforts to engage them in a project that engages them, that they can. I wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's very important, and they're definitely all brilliant staff members, and I want to sort of, lift them up as much as I can. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, traditionally, the budget line for training has not been fully used in recent years, so there are resources available.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I think it's definitely a wonderful thing to do.
You're welcome to stay, Mary, if you want, but.
I'd like to check in. We had Lego Club, and I want to just make sure. It did get a little wild, so I would love to check in on my staff and see that they're all right, if that's okay.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Mary.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your board meeting. All right, I will see you all soon, I'm sure.
So to follow up with that, I'll say, I don't know if any of you attended the book bash this Saturday, but it was again, another huge success. And as you know, the book bash is now so Cheryl formed I think it's Book Bash, is the name, or that Book Bash is the name of the nonprofit she formed, but the library still is very involved. We had several staff there, myself, Mary, Gia, Laurel, staff involved, and a lot of us were there all day. Including my son, who volunteered for 10 hours. So, yeah, he was actually the Pete the Cat.
I was gonna say,
He
was
was
he
Pete the Cat for part of it, and he loved it. He got his first marriage proposal from a 12-year-old.
Wow.
Very odd, came up to him and said, "Will you marry me?" and then ran away. That's Pete the Cat. So, yeah, so it was a really great day. The weather held, it was warm, but the attendance was great. Cheryl did an amazing job again this year, and so we still use the community room and then our facilities, and so it was a win-win, I think, for everyone, and a great day. And I think book sales were only slightly down from last year. I think the seller had sold about 16,000 last year, and it was about 15,000 this year. So
I think that's dollars.
what?
Dollars. Not
Dollars.
books.
Right, yeah.
Well, you never know.
Yeah. $15,000, which the Book Bash now, the nonprofit will get a portion of. And then, so, yeah, so I'm pleased with how it's continuing to happen, and,
So it's not a library program.
it's not a
per se
library
now?
program anymore, no, but the community, it's hard to sort of tell because we're almost just as involved as we've been in the past. We have, I met with Cheryl several times for planning, Mary and I met, we all had duties assigned to us before and on that day. But where's different is it's solely hers, and she's got all the financial responsibilities for the event.
You get the intangible benefit of being associated with the event.
Right, because it's right here in our backyard, and
And it sort of
right,
celebrates reading books
Right,
and
so we-
community, and
we absolutely want
we
to
bring
be
our
involved,
community
right.
to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, it worked out beautifully, and again, it was a great event, and people look forward to it every year. So the next thing, while we're waiting for EMC, I'm gonna continue on. So one of the things you'll see under my report is talking about the menu of opportunities for staff and trustee relationship building. Well, I want to start with the schedule for the job shadowing. So Elizabeth is gonna pass out a schedule for you, for the trustees to fill out. You could take with you and bring it and then drop it off, or she's also gonna send out a link to a Google form. So you can complete the form online. So when you see this, you'll see there are various departments and then times and days, and you just check off the box that you're interested in, the department that you're interested in shadowing. You can see which staff members are going to be involved, sort of a very brief overview. And then if you have something specific that you want to learn or a question you have, you can put it in there as well, and then we can sort of be prepared, and the staff member can be prepared to answer it. When you meet with them. So do you have anything you want to add about the menu there for
Yeah, so this is to give it some framework, but if you want to visit more than one team, you can do that. If you want a different staff member, you can, it can be, we can tailor it to whatever experience you want. But what would be helpful for everybody is that last column there, what you would most like to learn when you visit. And then we'll get these back to the department heads, team leaders, and they will prepare for your visit.
So you can see the visits are for October, so we would like to, within the next week, so that we can plan. So please complete those, and you can scan it and email it back to Elizabeth or I, or you can drop it off to one of us. But again, Elizabeth will also send out a link to a Google form, so you can complete it online.
Will this be, if some of us want, pick the same date and time frame? Do you do it as a group, or is it supposed to be one-on-one?
I think we can do it as small groups. I
Okay.
think that would actually work well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are there any questions about that piece?
Great.
Okay, so I'll go on then to the next part while we're waiting for Tom, which is just, I sent in the board packet, which is now on Google Drive, some options. So this is just, I wanted to have really more of a dialogue and a discussion to see also if the board had additional things that they felt would like to add to this menu. But I put some things that were already starting, some things that I think would be helpful. And so in the first section, I have, understanding the work experience, which, so some of this we're already starting to do, which is, participating in the staff work, shadowing, dropping in just for informal visits to say hello, introduce yourself, observe what's going on in the room, especially a children's room, where the Lego club is insane. Also, one thing I'll be doing, or, as Carl might suggest, if there's a particular staff member, the board would like to come and make a presentation about something, let me know. I'll also be, suggesting, like Mary, I've got some ideas for maybe Hannah to come next month and talk about some things. So we'll rotate staff members to talk about it. So again, if there's somebody you would, or a department you'd like to hear from, let me know and we'll make that happen. So that was the beginning of that. And then attend staff meetings as appropriate. And as we've talked about before, when there's a topic that we want a discussion, maybe with a committee chair, like we had Karen from Building and Technology. I haven't talked to Tommy yet, but I was going to see if maybe he would come to our next all staff meeting and talk about the budget process. So things like that, when we have agenda items, I think that's very appropriate for trustees to be there. And then the second section, I think, being visible, attending library programs. I know we've talked about this in the past, and then wearing that trustee badge, I think is really important. Attending fundraising events, because staff, for example, in the spelling bee and semantic, they do more staff attended that than ever before, and they're going to see the trustees that are there. So it's really important.
They made comments on that, actually.
Oh, did that? So and then volunteer at the library. I know some of you are, by the fact that you're here, you are all volunteering. However, staff, volunteering, I know, like to help do a mailing. Suki volunteers to shelve. It doesn't have to be something that you come every week. I know many of you are very busy with lots of other activities and work, but even if it's just for a one-off or a one-time thing. That's, staff see that, and I think that's really important. And then represent the library, of course, at outreach events, like we've got the Woolwich Central School coming up, or we've got some Woolwich trustees that are willing to be, or that are able to be there. Citizens Involvement Day, anytime that trustees can represent that way. And then I think one of the things that it's always been sort of awkward for me is how, I think it's important to show appreciation. I think it's important for library administration to show appreciation to staff. I think it's important for trustees to show appreciation to staff as well. And so I always I don't want to tell trustees how they should do it, but also I've got some ideas for things you could do. I think one thing, just writing a personal note every once in a while, like if in a monthly report, or like Mary, you saw something that they did, or you wanted to comment, which was great because she was here.
I know.
Hello.
Okay, so I'll put a hold on our conversation, but I will say that's a great thing to send her a little note saying how much you appreciate that, or an email even. But I think that's really good, because you all noticed those things and you commented the meetings. So rather than me having to then relay it, it'd be great if you just wrote a note and let them know how much you appreciate the work they do. Okay, so
Do they
I
all
will.
have emails?
Yeah, I can give her like the staff email list to everyone, sure. Actually, the emails are on under the About the Library section. Contact the library, staff emails are on there as well, so you can grab them.
By the way, listed before, just one of the notes I made was I think it'd be useful at this point, now that everybody's back and you're fully staffed, to get an updated list of both the staff
Oh,
and the
sure.
volunteers and their positions, so that we know that again.
Thank you.
Absolutely, we can certainly do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna halt so that we can get Tom. Hey, Tom. You want, I'm gonna plug in your laptop, so do you use it?
So,
Okay.
I'm running real issues here.
If not, I can
Which
actually
is
pull it up the Google Drive for that and share my.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
This has been a day with this thing, I'll tell you.
Here we go.
I just.
You don't?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe as suggested here that while the system's getting set up, Dean, I believe you're doing the introductions.
Yes, yeah. For those who don't know Karen Robbins, Chair of the Building and Technology Committee, has been working with Tom Seekins of the MC. They are on speed dial with one another, and talking frequently, with the understatement, on various aspects of this project. And so with that, I'll.
Well, thank you for actually supporting all of this activity. What I'd like to do is just put tonight's presentation in context of kind of the historic urge for AC and improved heating and ventilating systems. And I've given Leslie a summary of this, and she might send it out to everybody afterwards, and I think you have hard copies.
Yeah, do we to pass these around?
Well, no.
Oh, no, I did not send, okay.
So basically, I just kind of wrote out real briefly the history, and when I showed it to Leslie, she reminded me that back when this edition was put on in 1998, AC for the building was supposed to be included in the scope of work, but as you can imagine, money was gone, so it never happened. So it's been an urge that's been in the air for quite a while. It got revisited back in 2015 when the team room was put in place, and a feasibility study was done for the AC system then as well. And again, money was not available. In 2018, the building committee was created. And one of the first things we got told was, we'd like you to do your job of keeping the building up to snuff to support the mission of the library, and can you get us AC? Steve, I think that's what you said to us. So, At that time, we, as a committee, decided we should have a capital needs assessment done, kind of a baseline of where is the building? What are its needs going forward? How can we fit in this really pressing urge to make it hospitable to staff and patrons and so on? So we had a capital needs assessment done. It was delivered to us in January of 2021. We reviewed it. And then in 2022, the strategic plan was adopted by you guys, and one of the goals or implementation strategies was to have a plan developed about how to get AC in the building. So that charge was put front and center to the building committee last summer, or I guess 2 summers ago now, June of 2022. And we began to address it that fall. And we felt like the first important step was to do an energy audit on the building, find out where we were in terms of basic building envelope, where we were on HVAC system, where we were on other components that would make the building efficient, but also there might be efficiencies to be gained before we address the air conditioning and the AC system. So we began that process. We kind of figured out how we would approach it. The library committed to a critical path in January. There's 3 parallel critical paths, and I think Dean, you presented it to the board at that time. One of it was a technical path, and a parallel path would be the funding path. How would we get these different items paid for? And then the third one, which is really important because the building is inside a historic zone. It's considered by the state to be a building of historical significance. And as many of you know, we're not sure where the library property line is. It's kind of this gray area between the library and the city. And so we needed to address any number of those issues. So that's why we included a critical path for city engagement as we proceeded forward. So then by March, we had identified 8 potential energy auditing firms. We had a rubric that we decided to work to. And out of that, a couple of them fell out, EMC being one of them. And then we decided that EMC was probably the best path forward. They are energy efficiency service provider partners. They have experience in commercial buildings. They have experience working with nonprofits, municipalities. They have historic building experience. They also had a really strong track record in helping organizations find funding mechanisms by identifying incentives provided by Efficiency Maine, identifying grants, and identifying more conventional institutions that would help move the project forward. So we engaged with EMC in April. They have since provided us with the preliminary report and kind of their recommendations and gross estimates, which Tom will go over tonight. And I think either Leslie has hard copies tonight, and she's also sent them out to board members by email since they've come in. Yeah, we've seen that.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm speaking of the most up-to-date numbers that just came in.
I have hard copies of that, yeah.
Great, excellent. And so that's kind of where we are. And then we also have engaged with the city, I want to say the beginning of September, but in fact, when we reflected back, it was the 31st of August, to tell them kind of the direction we hoped to go, and then to find out how we would best interface with the parking lot, the library park, while some of these projects were going on. They also shared with us where they were in their, community development grant that they did in fact receive. And what we figured out is we've got some tight communication that has to happen with them. They were very supportive with the renderings that EC provided us, and again, Leslie, you provided those to the board, the renderings.
Yes, the renderings, the renderings.
You guys
I've
have
seen.
seen the visuals of where we need to go with all of this. We're at the point where we have preliminary estimates, we have conceptual designs. But in order to take this project to the next level and make what I call contractable documents, contractable designs, fine tune the financing path. We need to basically sign the letter of intent, which says to the MC that, yeah, we're serious, we're not just tire kicking. And let's partner.
I should add that the discussion on the letter of intent will come later in the agenda. We won't append this onto the presentation now,
Yes, okay, that's great.
but we will talk about it today.
So I just wanted to give you that historical context, and then I want to turn it over to Tom, who I hope had a chance to take a breath. Because he's had a hard day with his computer, which is telegraphed to his late arrival, which he has already apologized profusely to me on my texting. And then when he gets done presenting where we are right now, we'll open it up to you guys for questions. I'll look to Tom to answer. So, at this time, Seekins, see.
Sorry, I'm late. Major PC problem starting at 7 this morning.
Oh,
And then I had to rush to get my daughter to soccer practice and she sat on my glasses, so I'm gonna squint a little bit, okay? I'll get that. I'll get friendly. So, yes, I'm grateful that this thing is actually running. It's been an unbelievable day with this. IT has come back 3 times today in my office, so. This is the rendering of the library, as Karen had said. And by the way, I don't know how much you guys are paying Karen, but she is relentless in her pursuit of this project. More so than
We're paying her as much as we were paying ourselves.
In good vibes.
She's a fantastic ambassador for you guys. I do a lot of municipality work, K-12 work, I should probably say. So I ran the energy team for a huge national energy services company for 20 years. And EMC was the company that we hired to do most of the actual work. So there's big national ESCOs, Energy Services Company is the acronym. And, you know, they're responsible for the project, but then they hire smaller companies like EMC to actually do the work. So EMC was the company we hired when I was in that capacity for the 20 years I was there. And which is kind of how we got here. But I'm now, a couple of years ago, I took over as the president of EMC. So my job as the president of EMC is to hire way smarter people than myself, which I have done. And Eric and Joe have both been here relentlessly, as well as Karen and Leslie doing all of this work. So the 2 really smart guys that are responsible for most of this work are not here. I try not to drag them into too many late night meetings because they all have children and things. So I'll do my best to answer all the questions I can, but if they're beyond my capacity, then I'll be sure to ask Joe. So people want to get into gasification and do 3-pipe systems and how that goes to and fro. I mean, I'll go as far as I can go, but you know, Joe and Eric might be the better candidate for that. So yeah, I think that's kind of how we got here. Another ESCO had been here prior to us, and then said to Karen, at the end of the day, EMC is going to be the company that we hire to do the work. So you'll save yourself some markup by going directly to EMC, and that's kind of how we started this whole thing several months ago now. And so we've gotten quite a way down the rabbit hole with a lot of different renderings and options and things to consider. Really focusing on the things that matter. A lot of people we do a ton of K-12 work and municipality work. So we're very used to this types of applications and things taking a long time. In the K-12 world, literally nothing happens for 6 to 12 months. So we're very used to, you know, really pumping the brakes, making sure all the right decisions are made, and then actually executing the work. So not a big deal to us that it takes a while. It's just the letter of intent does, as Karen and I spoke, and Leslie, that it puts a little skin in the game. What we actually goes into this thing is not, you're not even close. We're spending way more than that letter of intent, obviously, reads out there. But it's just something to say that you are progressing into a project, because it is, it's pretty busy right now, the construction world, so we have to focus on those projects and then move along. But, happy to have done what we've done thus far. So I don't know, which part of this, Karen, Leslie, you want me to get into? I mean, we've got the proposal, I've got the complete VRF design, here, I've got the renderings that Eric did that show, this is the VRF up here.
If you kind of walk people through the renderings,
Okay.
walk people through the thinking of the VRF versus geothermal, because I know in the first one, there was a lot of interest in geothermal. And then if you can talk about, some of the work that we have yet to do, yet to construction documents, and maybe how you see that process happening.
Yeah, I mean, and so not to assume that, I get too far, but everybody's kind of gone through this document that spells out a lot of the things that we looked at, right? So we show what you've got for existing equipment up here. The infrastructure, of course, what you're working with, that can be a challenge. Every building has its challenges. This one's got plenty of them. Then the actual life of equipment, which is what we go by. We do nothing that's kind of, a finger in the air. And then the capital planning matrix, which is essentially just kind of looking at what we felt and you felt were the most logical things to focus on to start. And this is kind of our little chart that helps people's eyes go to the part that is usually red. That indicates that's something that makes sense now. And then the other things could wait if you'd like them to. The reason building automation systems should wait is because really that's an advanced control platform that would be a central hub that runs off a PC software-based system that every point of information, we'll call it, or data in the building. So it's, temperature in each room, supply and return temperatures in the air handlers, what the VRFs are doing, all those things. You can get exotic and bring them back to the front end, but really what that requires is someone to run those systems. And of course, you guys don't have someone that's sitting in this building running those systems. So unless Leslie wants to go to some school for a while with us, that's no problem with the trainer, but that might not be of interest. So we kind of put that as a green. And a lot of these systems these days, which is great for these applications, right? Where you don't have an engineer or someone with a really strong facilities background, knows holistic energy, knows how to run these systems. Even those that do still have to go to training, right? These systems can run independently, and that's how they're really designed. So Mitsubishi, Daikin, all these big manufacturers, Beastman, that develop these things, they really want their controls running these systems because that's how they're developed and designed at the plant level. So really, everything that we've come up with here, the automation system certainly can wait, and you can have your advanced thermostats that would be on the wall just like the others. Just, you'd have a display, it'd be digital. It can be centrally controlled. You can do it through Wi-Fi so that you can have things set back on a snow day automatically. You can do all the things that you can do with a central system, just a lot less money and run just locally instead of a central hub. So it's not that you wouldn't have automation, because you would. So I don't want people to think that you're putting in all this stuff and then you're not gonna have controls. We didn't touch the boiler room as a starting point because you had put a new boiler in there. It's a couple of years old now. It's perfectly fine. It would serve as essentially as a backup because the VRF system would be simultaneous heating and cooling. It's designed to carry this load. Joe did a fantastic design, which I show you right there. I think you guys have looked at this, but essentially, these are your condensing units up here that we showed you, the compressors. And then they run into the cassettes here, which go into essentially they would look like these diffusers here for the most part, unless the application's a little different. And then you have your return grills that you've got somewhere, kind of spread out with the building, but it really wouldn't be that invasive. In fact, we plan on using the wooden cabinets that you've got in the older sections of the nicer section of the building so that you wouldn't see these things because it is beautiful in there. And so Joe measured them, took one, opened it up to make sure that we could use it and that wouldn't cause any issues with the wood. So that would be a really cool thing to try to accomplish. So yeah, that was our plan. people go in there, as we noticed throughout the, days of walking the building, they're reading, they're enjoying that nice view, and that's a beautiful space, so. To disrupt that by adding a big piece of mechanical equipment in the center of the room wouldn't be ideal, so we were trying to, use those wooden grates. That's where these would reside. So the boiler room would stay as a backup, and, really efficiency main, as you saw on that pricing sheet, really is focusing their time and energy, no pun intended, and incentives for electrification of heat. They really want to get rid of fossil fuels.
May I interrupt just for a second?
Yes.
Leslie, have you distributed some of the most recent, price increase?
Do you want?
I have it here too. I can take
Do you want me to?
I think you might get ready, because he's getting ready to start.
Okay, so why don't I just
Yes,
pass this along?
Can I ask a question? Sorry to go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not sure I'm understanding on VRF, is that not a priority?
Yeah, there's
It's two different.
Yes, I had a question.
there,
So,
the capital planning matrix and the
It's
capital
different.
planning details show different priorities.
Yeah, well, because, and here's why, our priority is, of course, gonna be different than yours, right? Our priority is making sure the building is operable and that you have proper heat and ventilation, so it might, we look at it as, from a practical standpoint, not really what is really needed, so when you're talking about the primary source of heat and air conditioning and the best incentives, that's definitely gonna be a priority, but we're looking at it as, detrimental to the building, that you really need to do this now, or you're gonna find yourself in trouble. You have a new boiler, so it's not something that we would say that you really need these now, because that looks a bit presumptuous on our part. It's an expensive endeavor, so we're not saying that if you don't put VRF in, you're not gonna have proper heat in the building. Of course you do, right? That's why it's not.
Well,
but what about cooling?
Well,
Right, that's why I'm saying that would be your priority, and happy to support
I think that's a.
it. Yeah,
Okay, so the roof replacement is leaking, the roof is leaking, so that is clear, you'll have to respond to that.
yeah,
Emergency lighting, some of it is not functioning properly, so that means it's not meeting code, that gets the red, health and safety
Yeah.
immediately. Then you go with some of the lighting upgrades without controls or with controls, those are choices of automation essentially.
Right.
And the efficiencies gained by dealing with the lighting make it a high priority. Because it's one of the quickest ways to go at the efficiencies. The VRF system is not a priority because we are not today at the build mode. We are in fact at end of theoretical life on the old, not old, but the system that's in this old section. We are based on the capital needs assessment, and we've had some issues, and this has been in to resolve some of them to the point that we've got some air handle replacement done. So I would say that actually the VRF, when we think like Tom is thinking, as compared to the way we're thinking, it's probably closer to an orange, and we only really want air conditioning. So I think that's kind of what we're all speaking to here. He's speaking from the energy audit point of view. And we're all thinking, we want air conditioning.
Yeah,
So whatever we do, we
this
got.
is what we figure as a priority now.
So that's the difference that you're seeing in his capital.
Okay, thank you.
When he gets to talking about the difference between why you might choose geothermal versus, the VRF system, he'll start to identify that because air conditioning is so much a priority for us, it makes sense to go with the VRF
Right.
system at this point.
Yeah.
So, yes, it really is a red for us. But in terms of if we didn't have the money to spend, just like in the past times that we made big capital improvements, it could be lost, in fact. I guess the other thing is, I call it an orange issue because since 2015, Maine has actually become a cooling state. We spend more energy on cooling in the state of Maine than heating. So pretty quickly, air conditioning is gonna become a requirement. You're seeing that in schools, they're having to retrofit or shut down. So we can quibble about the color they have chosen here.
Yeah.
But I think we are all on the same page, the air conditioning is a high priority for the.
We just have to be cognizant of trying to be presumptuous that everyone, you look at this, look at everything red, because everybody wants everything to be red, everybody wants all the bells and whistles, right? But you can't do that if you're us, because it's a bit, you know, you have to do these things. You don't have to do any of these things, but we're trying to just make it easy as to, it wasn't meant to be a big contentious thing. It is, you guys determine what's important to you, right? At the end of the day, it's your project. We're just the backup dancers to your video, so we're just trying to get you in the right place and you make those decisions. So this is not to be a point of contention. This is our viewpoint on it, but you guys can tell us what's red and what's green and yellow.
None of that stuff is sequential, like you have to do one before you can do the other.
Right.
Well, there is one section, repairing the roof, because
Yeah.
the
For the solar.
you see,
I thought you meant
and,
VR. Yeah.
yeah, the external units for the VRF and the solar units need to go down on, there, that's good.
Yeah,
So
well,
that is actually.
it does look like we corrected it to be a high priority, so we've solved all the, those issues here.
We saw it.
Next, we'll take our world hunger, and we'll be good. So yeah, again, a big reason this makes sense is because of the way efficiency man has shifted their focus on providing incentives, and that's on that tool. Handsome incentives for going VRF versus fossil fuel. And you're doing that for the entire facility. I spent actually a good portion of the day talking to different financing arms in regards to your project with efficiency man. So we can talk about that a little bit too. I did find out some more information on that. So that's, yeah, VRF. We spent the most of our time was designing the VRF system because it became pretty evident that was going to be an important measure to consider. And then you have diversity in fuel types too, right? So if electricity goes wild, which a lot of people expect it to, it's a natural supply and demand thing, like Karen just alluded to. A lot of people, this is 100 and something of these designs we've done with VRF between commercial buildings and schools. We just did it for the museum down the street, all over the place. So you know that's going to increase the kilowatt hour cost. In New Hampshire, it went up 112% in 1 year. You know that's going to happen, right? It's going to. So, but in this case, you have the diversity in fuel types, meaning you have your boiler room, should things go too crazy. And we actually created a tool that we would give you guys. It's a thermal tool that allows you to figure out, okay, electricity, solid fuel, meaning pellets and wood chips, which obviously is not applicable here, but some people have it, right? Gas, oil, or VRF, and you can type in the cost that you're paying per unit of energy, and it will tell you what is the most efficient way to, and economical way to heat your building. And so you'll have those abilities to kind of decide down the road, should electricity rates go through the roof. You know, our building load went up 85,000 kilowatt hours because we went VRF. With that additional load, and electricity goes up by 100%, you know, in 5 years, does it make more sense now to use the number 2 fuel oil? I mean, you know, you'll be able to have that conversation. You won't be stuck with one in one silo.
And you'll have solar to help mitigate.
And you'll have solar to help mitigate, correct? Yep, exactly.
We opt for that.
Yeah. From that perspective, it's sort of a kind of a renewable loop, if you think about that, and that's really attractive to any and everybody, especially from a sustainability standpoint. So with 152 panels, I mean, you're gonna have plenty. This is just stuff about the building automation systems. This is the kind of controls we have now. These are just G87 household pet thermostats. So these are replaced with advanced thermostats that would be Wi-Fi enabled. It would be the manufacturer of the system undertaken in Mitsubishi. And you know, by the way, so when we present these numbers, we have not gone through all the paces of competitive bidding yet, right? So we don't want to drag our contractors through endless amounts of walkthroughs and detail without knowing what's going to happen. So in a lot of cases with schools, we'll come up with 50 measures and they may say, okay, phase 1, we want to do 10 of these measures. So we can't drag through 3 contractors for every single measure and have them give us pricing and then say, sorry, none of this is going to happen in 5 years. So we've done all of these things many times, so we know pretty close what these numbers are going to be. So that's kind of how we get there. The roofing aspect, we did get a much better number because that's hard to guess, especially when you've got a little bit of slate, which you have to tuck underneath. We did have a company come out for us and do some test pits, and so you've got 3 inches of insulation in some parts, 2.5 in others, a little bit more on another piece. We did 4 different test areas just to confirm what we suspected. So that's a pretty good number, and same with the solar. So, but the controls, you know, the VRF, we're hoping that we can do much better. The lighting number is very accurate. We did a complete detailed room by room audit of all the lights, and we do that ourselves. So that's we feel really good about that number. And again, the boiler room is going to stay as is, and then the roof. It's quite a job, but it's nothing that the roofing contractors that we bring through wouldn't be able to do pretty easily.
That the entire roof needs replacement?
Everything but the slate, so all the rubber membrane essentially. And adding insulation to it, to get it to basically 4 inches would be R30, which would be the recommended insulation for this facility from an ASHRAE standpoint. So what we'll do is we'll ask the company, hey, give us 2 different options. Right now, we're carrying them pulling out the insulation and adding all new insulation because, you know, you go that far. I mean, Karen, you're a builder, right? So you wouldn't want to just like leave the old insulation and put new stuff on top of it sometimes, unless it's in really good shape. So we kind of go worst case scenario, which is on the roof piece, that is pulling out the insulation and putting in new insulation and adding an inch to it. So it's all new from the bottom to the top, ballast, insulation, and the rubber membrane.
And I can't make any promises for BFC's subcontractor, but when we went out and did the, I think we did 6 test bills, like he says, at all the different levels of the roof. They found the insulation was intact, and they're gonna reprice it, with the idea that insulation stays and that some gets added to it, and then the high density board goes on top of that. So there won't be removal, there won't be disposal, there won't be total purchase, to get there, so hopefully it's backwards and just
Yeah. So this is the typical process for this whole thing, with every single project we develop, because then when you say, okay, this makes sense, we can do it here, and then our job is to go drill this thing back down and get better numbers. The other thing that happens, these things take so long developing, that when you go back 6 months later, things go up in cost, right? We just did a huge Viessmann job with all of Winthrop schools, and they finally made their decision 7 months after we did the design, and Viessmann went up 18% across the board on all their material. And so when you're talking $1 million in boilers, it's real money, right? So we went worst case scenario, and the price didn't change because we added another 5% to it, and overall we were able to make it work. So we also do it for that purpose. Because it's nothing worse than getting to these meetings, you present numbers, and you come back and say, I know those ones look good, but these, you know, things went up. So you try to go worst case scenario, which is kind of probably what you're seeing here. There's a lot of rock on that roof for obvious reasons, a lot of wind, and a pretty good spot there. But yeah, we confirmed, and Karen's been part of those walkthroughs, so and that's your solar array system. Eric did a nice rendering of that. I thought this rendering of what you'll see from the roof is pretty darn good. You wouldn't even see the solar panels, especially since you know, the lip, you know, we tuck underneath there. Most of these VRF systems we designed, that you see them on the ground, and they just don't look great. But in this case, they were fine, and that's what you see from the ground level.
Can you just, for people who aren't accustomed to such can you take your cursor and point to the left there?
That's the VRF. Okay. These are
That's
box.
what you would see from library park.
Yeah.
That's
That's
where
good.
the heat pump.
The outside.
Compressors.
The outside. The inside, that's whatever we want to call it.
And there's no issue with the roof, given that we're a historical building or anything, none of that is an issue with the roof materials or. EPDM or the,
We don't anticipate it. That was part of the conversation that we had with the, city the end of August. Because interestingly enough, the library is in the historic zone, but the historic zone doesn't meet the performance standards. And,
That's right.
Okay.
so when we took these renderings, which is the main purpose of them, they were really happy with what they saw. They had to have some conversation with the State Historic Preservation Office about the work that we do in Library Park, which raised kind of a pink flag for me, and we've done some more researching on it, and we don't anticipate any of that. We will probably have to sit with the Historic Review Board and see with that, but again, I'm not anticipating any major problem. If they find that it is offensive to pedestrians in the park, Eric, who's on Tom's team, and we talked about the idea of shielding it and making it appear a little more blended. But again, I think probably most of you didn't even realize what there was a corner with it.
And I just want to mention on the solar, there are already no less than 2 buildings in the historic district with solar on them. One of them being a recent historic tax credit renovation, which if you don't know is governed by just about every government entity there is in the country. I'm almost not exaggerating, it's a big bear. And there was really no issues whatsoever. So I would, being optimistic, it's just a,
Conversation.
Yeah.
that needs to
I
be
just
had.
wondered, you know.
Yeah. yeah, it's actually encouraged. Solar is encouraged even, especially on historic buildings because they're historically widely inefficient. So it's nice to put a little efficiency up there.
Yeah, I didn't know about the material or anything,
Yeah,
you know, that's
absolutely.
why
Yeah.
it's historic, you know, we can be picky in some places.
Absolutely.
I didn't know about how it was now.
Especially if you're replacing basically the same thing, you're usually pretty good with that too.
I would add, concerning the historic district, we passed when I was on the planning board, we passed a, land use code change that permits, roof mounted solar. It has different controls for, ground-based solar, which is unlikely to be used. And it pretty much, it was just keep them black, make the panel edges black. And so I don't think there'd be any issue when you came to the planning board. In terms of that, I can't imagine that anyone's going to object to solar, even if it's visible.
Yeah, and these are black edged panels.
And not visible.
Not I mean, you can even powder coat the brackets, which most of them are stainless, but you can powder in case that someone really wants some black, which we can't see it from the ground, the additional cost to do that would be, would make a lot of sense, so. Eric did a nice job on this rendering, just kind of giving you a depiction of what they look like. But essentially that's what you'd be seeing, that's the design, yeah. And then this is essentially what is extrapolated from that document that I just showed.
And that's what everybody has in front of their current.
Yeah.
And you'll see on.
I'll change those.
Yeah, that, the lighting upgrade without controls, has been Xed out because that was an option. And this is actually a screenshot of a proprietary tool that EMC has, and, at the 2 meetings that we had with Tom and his team, we spent a fair amount of time manipulating the lighting, pulling out the solar panels, adding back, the lighting without control, removing with controls to see where that brought us. And one of the things that was surprising to all of us is when we pull out the solar array because of the lost incentives, it's actually the same cost as doing it with and without.
Yeah.
Can you explain the with controls? I know I read that,
Oh,
but I can't.
that's some of the features on the lighting itself.
The dimming
the dimming features.
Okay.
And,
No one's in there.
yeah,
Dimming,
and
okay.
the dimming gives local control
Yes.
and energy efficiency, and
Yes.
also makes it more
Yeah.
habitable for most people like that we talk to on the staff. And we're looking for some.
And every fixture would have a sensor in the fixture, baked right into the fixture, so it's not, technology where you have a sensor in the middle of the room. So it's, or a bathroom, there's not a lot of movement for a while, and the lights will shut off. So now every fixture would have a sensor baked into the fixture. So anything adjacent to a window bank, and it's really bright outside, would automatically dim down to match the light levels necessary for that you pick. And, EMC has an engineer dedicated to just light levels, so whenever time we do a lighting project, that's, Adam Lansky's job is to go through to make sure that all the light levels in every room are to Leslie's liking, so if she likes it in this area where people study a little bit brighter, it is 45-foot candles at the desk level at 4 feet, which is optimal for a classroom. Or if you want it dark over here because people watch movies or something, you'll have that ability to set it, but then you'll also have the ability, like Karen said, to have local control to get the dimming to exactly where you want it. And they'll automatically shut off too. And I should say, none of this stuff is proprietary. That's an important thing to notate, that it drives us crazy when the really big companies get their equipment in there, and then you're stuck with them for the foreseeable future. So all the stuff that would be installed here, no matter who the contractors are, including ours, if nothing is proprietary, where you're stuck with anyone down the road, right? Because that is a big deal. And a lot of times, people forget about that. We went through a school system recently where they have burner controls, and everyone in the boiler room, there's only one company and all of New England can work on. And that can get expensive. If you have a problem, there's only one company to go to, and that's a real problem. So should that come up, just understand that we are very, very cognizant of making sure that no projects that we develop, we put our customers in a situation where they're stuck. So. Yeah, I don't know, this is a really cool and really neat tool, because it does allow us to go back and forth and choose and show the impact that every single measure has on the cash flow. So I'll just do a quick overview of how this tool works. It's all dynamic, so it's all connected. This is your years of financing above here, right? And the typical project we see with schools, municipalities, higher education, nonprofits like yourself, 15 to 17 years is kind of the sweet spot, primarily because that's the life cycle of you're gonna get the most out of that equipment. You really don't want to buy it. You can go 20 years on some of this financing, but when you're talking about life expectancies are hovering around 20 to 25 years, you're not getting a lot of useful life after the fact, where you're really gaining all that additional cost savings, right? Most things here are well beyond 20 years, but we designed this around 17 years. So your energy savings, here, operational savings, which is attributed to the lighting replacement. So every time you do a lamp and ballast, it's a few $100, and hire an electrician to come in and do it. All those things are real cost. Same with the heating and all the other aspects of this project. That's real cost. The roof repairs and stuff that you make, and having to go come and getting all new roof drains and things like that. So that's going to save you some money on an annual basis. So it's a very small percentage, but we put it in there because it is real cost. That's what that is. Should anyone want to know. Construction savings, this assumes that you're going to use the lease purchase mechanism, which you can use. It allows you a year of no payments. And it's really designed for you to start garnering all the energy associated with all the measures you choose as part of your project. And then when your first payment kicks in a year later, you have then saved energy for an entire year to put towards your payment, right? So as the years come, Leslie's not going to take the numbers out of her budget for savings and number 2 fuel oil, because you're investing in new equipment. So you can't take those savings out of your budget and expect that savings to be there to put towards your payment, right? That can sometimes be confusing, but that's really what this tool does. So yeah, you're saving a bunch of energy, but you can't take it out of your budget, because that's what you're using towards your payment. So the delta between the savings and the remaining principal and interest, which is right here, is what you would add to your budget on an annual basis to actually make the payment. I think we went over that last time, right? We got there. People wanted to know, okay, how does that work then? If we have a $91,000 payment, well, just make sure that I have it quick. It's 24,000. So what this does is it allows us, once we pick and choose measures, you hit calculate annual contribution, and it tells us what you'll have to contribute each year based on what's chosen. So if we go through and we say, we'll take out the solar, and just for fun, because we did it last time. You go back to your cash flow, still gonna say 24,000, but taking the solar out, your contribution went up $3,000, right? Because of the impact that it has from a savings perspective and incentives. 30% tax credit coming back to you for the solar, it has a negative impact. So it's interesting to see how it all works in conjunction with one another, because they're leveraging each other to get to a point where, your debt is satisfied by savings. And that's kind of our goal as a consultant, to build a project that gets you there. And I think we're pretty close, 24,000 is not too bad for the amount of assets you're getting on this thing. The solar is not a PPA model. This is, you're buying the solar, so it is your asset at the end of the day. You'll see a lot of solar farms out there that are developed that are done through a PPA, power purchase agreement, where you're making the payment over 20, 25 years. You never actually own the solar panels, that's coming off your bill. You're still contributing more than likely, because you probably have a low rate per kilowatt hour. Get what it is, but I think I want to say it's like 14 cents or something very low.
Not when we contracted, it was
Okay.
higher, but
Yeah,
it's
you have a
still
third party. So anyway, even at the end of 25 years, you're still gonna buy those panels again. And so, that's not this model. Again, just so everyone's aware, just what these mean. This is, you're buying the solar panels. You're not having to buy it again in 20 years, your asset. So as you pick and choose these measures, it does build that cash flow tool that allows you to see, okay, what's it going to be? And again, our goal, as you can see the heat pump here, is $489,000. We're hoping that we can get that down a little bit once we drill down all the vendors, get the pipe runs right. We have measured and done the complete design, so we're pretty confident, but if we leverage a couple of bids against each other, chances are we can get these bids down. Same with the roof. I bet you by reusing some of the insulation, adding 2 inches on top of that, we could shave 50,000 off this roof. I bet, when you're talking that much insulation. So that'll have an impact as well, right? So that would change this number of 24,000 every year a bit. The only part that's a little tricky, because we have no control over it, is the interest rate. So this tool does allow for interest rates. So, if interest rates go up, you see that the impact, because I think there's some bankers in here, I'm sure, right? That compounded interest, a huge difference. Most of the banks will allow you a flat equal payment each year, which makes it much easier for your budget. So that's not going all over the place. So you know what that is. I did check with Efficiency Main's financing arm that was supposed to be kind of new, and reached out to them. They are getting a proposal together for your project, because they want to fund energy related projects, especially like this. I talked to the director today. I sent 3 emails to the arm of Efficiency Maine, nothing back. So I went to the director, then copied them, and of course I got an email back. Apologizing, and they did a proposal together for you. So then I reached out to the National Energy Investment Fund, which is it's a funding mechanism for commercial nonprofit entities to do projects. They had an interesting formula. Their sweet spot for commercial projects, whether it's nonprofit or not, is 7 to 10 years. But if you put either 10% down, so say it's $100,000 or $120,000, right? Worst case scenario, they would do 0% for 7 years. Right? They would also take your 10% and put it on your loan. So you can make it 1.3 something. And so you don't have to come up with $120,000. So I was kind of messing with that. I think it comes up to 90,000 a year or something. So if you went to 7 years, If you change this to 0%. Let's just say we left that the same, because say we can shave off $100,000 of this number, right? Let's do it that way. That's 0% for 7 years. That's $97,000 a year you contributed. If you did it that way. Not taking the money off yet. Right, so that's something that we could do, look at anyway.
Yeah, I think that's all really interesting things, and I think, probably Tommy and his committee would just love to sit down with you. And once they start to identify some possible global approaches, how much might be capital, how much might come out of, capital campaign, or how much might come out of, the annual budget, then they can start finding the sweet spot in terms of that financing opportunities.
Yeah, they assured, they give you plenty of examples that use locally. They get to a closing within weeks, which is insanely fast. Municipal leasing is usually, 4 to 6 weeks to get to a closing, once they have all the proper documentation in hand. That National Energy Investment Fund said they could get to closing within weeks. They can make the money available pretty quick. The only thing is they require their first payment to be within the first quarter of their financing term. So that's something to consider. But once you guys decide what you want to do, the point is that there's several different financing mechanisms out there that we're trying to exhaust as many as we can for you. Again, that's part of my job as a consultant, to help you find the right financing tool. So we've made a few phone calls. Municipal leasing consultants is going to give you a term and a rate. I don't know if they have, not yet, but okay. Well, I'll stick them in for you. We give them a lot of jobs to bid on, so we should respond. But I would anticipate their rates being a little bit higher because you're not a municipality, so that's different. But there's several different. I'd say you have 3 different financing mechanisms to choose from. But that's basically what ends up happening. That we built this thing for schools and nonprofits because no one has $1 million kicking around. And as much as it makes sense, how can you make it make sense without, draining your capital reserves? So, kind of what we'll come up with here. I don't know what more.
I think that I'd like to hear what people have for questions. I'd love to hear your answers.
Looks like Rue's got a question.
Thank you. I don't have the benefit of being able to see the PowerPoint. It wasn't included in the, for those of us who are remote. So we'll need that in some manner made available to us.
Yeah, it is on the share drive. I mean, on the Google Drive, it's there.
The PowerPoint is?
You didn't do a PowerPoint, it's a PDF.
Yeah.
But the PDF that I found didn't have renderings, it didn't have the tool in it.
The renderings is a separate document. You have the renderings and you have the PDF. None of us have the tool because it's proprietary.
Proprietary, that's fine. If you'll help me, Leslie, just to find my way to that later on, I'd appreciate it. A question, the 63 kilowatts estimated is estimated at 59% of the building usage. Is that with or without the heat pumps?
The increase would be the heat pumps.
So, but I thought the 63 kilowatts offset 59% of the usage.
That would be, well, I think that's the difference between the solar and I'm not really sure which one you're looking at. I have no idea.
In the document that is called Building Improvements and Energy Reduction Project. It's a PDF that has some color background to it. There is a description of the rooftop solar with a small rendering. And forgive me while I scroll. It has a description that 63 kilowatt annual estimated first year production of 68,000 kilowatt hours. Offset the current electrical load by 59%. So that current load refers to prior to heat pumps. Is that correct?
Yes, you're right. Yep, now I know just looking at.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's the lifespan of the solar panels, of a solar panel of this sort? I'm sorry, say that again. I've lost audio. Nope, I just lost yours. Say it again.
25 to 30 years.
Thank you. So, and I can't see the financing information at the moment. So is it logical that the first round of solar panels will be essentially paying them off, and about the time we pay them off, we're gonna might have to start replacing them?
No, I mean, no, they're warranted for 25 years. And yet they'll be well paid off by the time you would have to start replacing those.
Okay, good. That's an advancement. And on the building controls, my experience is on larger buildings with, as you described, a facilities team. When you say that you're not recommending, or it's a separate option to have building controls, is that the level of building control where you're programming whole sections of the building versus collecting information and sort of doing monitoring? Is there sort of an in-between, or sort of a building control light option?
Exactly, yep. If you went with the central, what we could, a DDC system where, a direct digital control platform for the entire facility, obviously you could do advanced programming and placement, and you could get data on every single point in the building, but it's not really necessary in this application, because you're not having someone that's running 6 buildings, right?
Right.
That, when you have multiple building applications, like it sounds like your experience with, that's when it's really important to be able to do everything from one platform. Where here, you're gonna be able to still pull the same data you really need in this one facility, just at a local level. Saves a lot of money and headaches when something goes wrong, because then you're really pigeonholing yourself into that same company that installed those building automation controllers, thermostats and panels and software. That's the one company you call, versus having that same HVAC company that does your filters and everything else. They can mess with those thermostats and controllers just as easy as anyone else, right?
Yep.
It doesn't pigeonhole you with one contractor. Gives you flexibility.
Thank you.
Peggy?
You're designing the plan, right? The work itself, will that all be contracted out, and who will handle that or do that? Could you explain that piece of it a bit?
Yeah, great question. We're responsible for all aspects of the project, whether we're doing it ourselves internally or the piping or the VRF will be subbing that out, right? We're managing the entire thing. So Joe and Eric are engineers. Joe is an HVAC expert, licensed in VRF, licensed in gas, oil, bless you, everything else. He would be managing that particular aspect of the project, because that's his expertise, right? So he would be making sure that whomever wins the bid for this install of the piping system for the VRF, that it's done per our specifications and our design. We also have it checked by a third party to make sure that everything that we're assuming is the way that they would do it as well, right? So we definitely have a third party that we work with to say, yeah, I like it, or have you considered this? Just because, we don't want to put ourselves in a situation just as much as you don't, but we manage the entire thing. We do the lighting project ourselves, we have our own, there'll be a designated EMC project manager that's responsible for all contractors, and funnels up to one person, and we relay that information back to Leslie as the building owner, and probably Karen if she's the designated person for the facilities team. We have weekly updates on the project. You have a kickoff meeting. Once we determine the exact scope and everything's ready to go, we do a kickoff meeting and lay out the entire timeline for every single measure. It's broken out in kind of like a Gantt chart. Everybody's familiar with Gantt charts. So you basically, you have lighting is going to be 3 to 4 weeks, and it takes 8 weeks to get the lights in, and then 2 weeks later, we'll start implementation. Same with VRF, same with solar, the roof, of course, one would come before the other. We lay all that out for you, so you knew exactly when it was gonna happen. And, you'd be getting weekly updates, usually on a Friday, on the project the whole way through until it's complete.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe I missed it, but, you know, Leslie referred to it, initially we talked about, you know, geothermal was sort of our darling for a while. And could you explain why VRF is superior for us, in your view, than geothermal?
It's everybody's darling until it's not, and then it's,
Yeah.
you know. We've just been awarded 2 contracts to help big schools, abandon geothermal systems in place and go with a chiller and a boiler system or something like this. It's not our favorite, and that was at design. So in other words, at construction, these were in place. Anytime you've got an existing facility like this where you have existing infrastructure, it's not gonna be, number one, can we even drill around here to do it, right? Everything that's here is not gonna match up with what geothermal is gonna ask for delivering the heat and the cool air to the facility. All this would come out and change. You can't really reuse any of that stuff. It would be an enormously expensive endeavor to engage in a geothermal system here. And then just the pure cost of it. That's why there's several school systems right now. We just got a contract to design a huge boiler plant and chiller for a gigantic, high school, not too far away, where they would like to abandon their geothermal system because it has cost them so much money. And for the past 10 years, 25% of those geothermal heat pumps have actually been run. They're so expensive to replace. They budget $50,000 to $100,000 a year to replace the heat pumps. There's so many reasons I can tell you why it's just not, but there have been applications where a closed loop system at construction, there's a couple, like I said, a couple. And I just had a partner that I worked with for 20 years. He's been designing in the Maine for 40 years, engineer right out of Freeport, and he's designed a ton. And only 2 that he can think of are still going pretty well. Ashbury says 19 years for the heat pumps, well source, groundwater heat pumps. Typical failure rate is less than 10 years. You know, there's applications where it does make sense. But this wouldn't be one of them. Okay. You know, like when you have a building that runs a lot, like a hospital or you know, maybe a prison or something where it's just very consistent, not up and down with what you need for water temperatures, that's more of an attractive measure or application. This really is not going to be that, right? Yeah, so.
I just heard something, but I'm not sure if I heard it or not, but if somebody said that if we do the solar array, if we take the solar array out, it's gonna cost the same as having the solar array. We'll end up, the bottom line will be about the same if we had.
You'll actually be spending a little bit more money without it.
Without, that's what I thought I heard.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any constraints to the season of the year for doing the job, doing the construction?
Yeah.
It's gonna be done year round?
Well, obviously the roof would, you know, we're gonna wanna wait until the spring, and then when it's, you know, we really wanna time that the right way, but any roofing contractor that we have been on these, like the one that came up and did the test pits, they're expert, that's what they do. They've been, if they're not doing it for 25 years, they're certainly not gonna have someone break their teeth on a building like this. No, but yeah, that would be the one, and then of course, you have to wait for the VRF and the solar, so this would all presume probably spring and summer next year to do most of this work. Lighting, we could start right away. You know, but for the most part, the big heavy hitting measures are gonna be in the spring and summer. Yeah, gives you time to get a lot of this stuff is long lead times too. There's so many of these projects going on right now that it takes several months just to get them in. So you're right there. Most of the projects we're designing right now for schools are all next year. And we're designing them right now because it takes so long to get, the equipment in.
I don't know if you already mentioned this, but, does any of this work impact the operations of the library, like closing off spaces or, having to move stuff out of spaces to?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, probably a little bit, you know, we'll try to do it in sections of the building. We always lay that out in that kickoff meeting. Before the kickoff meeting, we'll have a plan, implementation plan that we'll have prior to that, so then we'll already say, okay, so again, we agreed upon, these are the dates we're gonna be in this portion of the library. We'll set all the units above, we'll do lighting second shift, more than likely, so that we don't impact, because that really is gonna be very invasive throughout the building. And we have a really good system with lights, that we can get them going pretty quick, but it's really hard to do one room at a time and come back and do another room at a time. So we'll more than likely do that second shift, so you'll never even know we were in the building. When you come in, a lot of it will be done.
Yeah, I think the most thing, like, was we did that whole renovation project, and it's just communication.
Yeah.
So we managed it really, really well, and it's just, as long as we know exactly when, and, you know, that's just the big part of it, and we were able to do that whole project with minimal disruption by moving things around as we needed to. But again, to me, it's just all about communication. To me, that's the most important.
It's the same for us. I mean, that's gonna be the proof of a successful project, is how well we communicate during the construction process. And I think probably the evaporators, which are the units that'll be in those units in the room, that's gonna be the part that would be the most invasive, but we'll have all the infrastructure done, so it's literally taking the unit and getting into the pipe and then moving on to the next one. You know, but that's a great question, yeah.
One thing that came into my awareness was when we were on the roof, when they take the ballast, which is the stone that's up there now, off the roof, they use a vacuum, if you can imagine such a thing. And if anybody has been near a beach where we haven't restored the beach, the vacuum and dredge, the dredge vacuuming. And we had the conversation about the noise that would be generated, and it's going to be pretty untenable. There was a brief conversation that maybe they could work one day of the weekend and the next day the library would be closed or something. They see that disruption taken, they would have to 2 days at least. Then they'd be under the roof. And wouldn't be really in the patron's way or the staff's way to stay under the roof.
And I think the community would be so understanding,
Oh,
because this is such an exciting project. that
If we had to
it's
close for like a month, that might be a problem.
Yeah, I think they're close today.
But I mean, so I
Explain this,
need to, as,
we'll have.
you know, need to know. Yeah, as Carl was talking about, before representing the organization, I think if we get to that place that we're signing the contract and issuing notice to proceed, I think it's gonna be the board's job to go out and knock on doors and let people know how really exciting it is and how it's gonna be great to be inconvenienced for 2 or 3 days. Because, you know,
There's sensitivity to stuff.
yeah, there's a conflict, and so I think that, you know, as we talk about what the library, our side is committing to, I think one of them is going to be relating what this project is about and how we're going to get from point A to point B. So when we talked this through, in the past month or so, that's the only place that I'm really thinking Tom's team and the building committee really looking for you guys to help share views.
Yeah, I mean, things like roll-offs, you know, for the roofing material, lighting material, you know, we recycle all this salt toxic waste, right? All this has mercury in it, so we're responsible for getting rid of all that. And that has to be recycled a certain way, which we take care of, it's all part of this
Yeah,
project.
and we talked about lay down area, when we were here, and we've had some of that preliminary conversation with the city, so. Again, if we stay in tight communication with the city, we don't see that as a particular one that barrier to anything, it's going to require really communicate.
Yeah. And that similar Gantt chart would go out well ahead of time so that you could share that with people in the community too, because this is a good point though. I didn't think about how tight the parking lot was. We're gonna need some time to have dumpsters, roll-offs, things like that, heavy equipment, they're gonna be putting things on the roof, taking it off, that will be, you know, you don't have to roof it off. I mean, we had to do that this past Sunday. We're doing a huge gas conversion for a school in New Hampshire, and the contractor never put any temporary fencing up. So we literally had to get on a Sunday and get someone out there to put fencing up so no one could near the hole. Because if someone went in there, it would be an issue, right? So. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It says, I know we're going to discuss the letter of intent after
Right.
this, But, when I looked at that letter, I didn't see anything about a range of costs for EMC.
Could we talk about the role of the letter of intent in this whole process?
Yeah, the letter of
Explain
intent.
what that is.
I kind of wrote it for you guys. It's your intention to contract with DMC. And it's essentially just to say, we intend to do this project and please continue to develop the project, but we're paid as general contractor. We get our 15% for running this entire thing, engineering it, managing it, from A to Z. And that's how we're paid. The letter of intent, really, we have no intention of collecting any money out of that at all. Never have. I issued 7 of those this week. It's just a matter of just a skin in the game by the customer, the client, to say, hey, we're intending to do this project, please continue to engineer this. We've been doing it for months, so that's a little bit late to the game. I typically had that LOI when we first start, but we kind of kept going and going and going, and it just kind of is something where I was just like, oh, let's just keep doing it.
They remember, they haven't received a dime. I mean.
No, and you won't.
Right, from all the work that you've already done so far, but there's a limit to how much, you know.
So in answer to Peggy's question is what the letter of intent is saying. If the board decides to sign it, they're saying, yes, let's design all of this to the point that subcontractors can give us a contract at the moment that Tom's engineers can order up parts and pieces of whichever options we can. And then if we get to the end of, I don't know, the next 2 or 3 months, that it'll take to get to that kind of contracting language. If the board would decide that the economic environment is so bad, you can't do anything at all on the library side, then the letter of intent says the library would owe EMC $15,000 for all their design work, all their engineering work. If at the end of doing all that work, the library says, we're gonna do the VRF heat pump system, we're definitely replacing the roof. We're not gonna do emergency lighting, we're gonna pull that out of next year's budget. We are gonna do the solar array, whatever that is, that would be the pricing at that moment that would be contracted with EMC. And as part of that contract, they would lay out a payment schedule that is necessary to proceed. So at this point, there really isn't a number.
No,
I misunderstand.
No, I'm hearing that.
Okay,
But what I didn't know, which I think Tom just said,
okay.
you take 15% of whatever we,
No, it's built in.
is it built in or is it on top of?
It's built into the budget's numbers we have. There's not an additional 15%. It's in the number
Okay,
already.
okay, that wasn't clear.
That LOI should have been issued months ago. That's
Okay.
my fault.
So
We're
15%,
just busy.
but
and
that's
it's
your
just-
fee, that's where you get your fee.
It doesn't
Yeah.
show up as a fee though. In his contract price, you're not gonna see a fee or an overhead. cost.
Okay, but I didn't know that.
I understand that, but I'm
Yeah, no.
Once you get paid, obviously,
Right.
it's supposed to
Yeah,
work.
That's what I get.
And I didn't see where or how, that was the question. I
It's built-
understand
yeah,
that, it's
built
fine,
into the
fine.
Price.
We're really good at engineering projects, not invoicing people, apparently. It's like the 50th time I've had to answer that. How are we paying you? We just did a $1.1 million lighting project for RS reporting in Union, Maine, and we hadn't even gotten paid, the project was almost done yet, and that was my fault. But, so, that's just a letter of intention, letter of understanding, people call them different things, that we are going to contract with you guys, should we do a project. The number identified in there is typically a third of what it actually costs us to develop a project like this. You know, when you have 2 engineers doing a ton of work here that you pay a lot of money, clearly you're not getting your money back for $15,000. It's just a number to say, we intend to do something, right?
Yeah.
So we continue to go ahead and engineer a project when you get to this point. So it's way behind. You could literally just say, we're not gonna do anything, and you wouldn't contractually owe me a dime. And I certainly wouldn't be sending lawyers out here looking for it, you know? It's just, again, a partnership agreement, a letter of understanding or intention, that's all it is. That $15,000 will stay right there, it's worth the ink that's on that paper, it's gonna be rolled into the financing, that's how we get paid.
I just have a question. You said the VFR equipment is lease purchase. this was place too.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
The heat pumps themselves,
Yeah,
are these purchased?
no, you own all these, this is your asset. The lease purchase is the financing tool that we assumed that you would be using, but again, like I said before, there's 3 different mechanisms you could use, it doesn't have to be a lease.
So these price, what you showed on the spreadsheet that was up there before.
And your
essentially
assets.
Purchased.
Yeah, no, you're not leasing, in the sense where you don't own the equipment. These are leases designed for nonprofits, municipalities, and, K-12 federal entities. So they do it in a lease in the sense that it makes it easier for you to finance, but you're not having to buy it again at the end, like a car or something, you own the assets. Yeah, now I get your point now.
All right, are there any final questions? Tom, thank you.
Yeah.
Great, yeah.
We didn't crash either, I just didn't believe it. I was so nervous the way up here, like, oh my God, this is gonna crash, I know it is.
Oh, dear.
All right, well,
Thank you so much.
thanks, guys.
That was really helpful.
Good to see you again. All right,
Thank you.
have a good night.
Take care.
Well, we want to move on, we wanted to go to the letter. Now, we want to, since this is all fresh in our minds, we want to go to.
I would recommend, I mean, it's not
Yes,
my
exactly.
meeting, but I'd recommend going right to the LOA.
Since we're all, just another question on the CNA. Back to the CNA.
Yes.
The source document. What's next on the list?
What is on the list? I was
What would
afraid
be the
you,
next
Steve, would
priority?
ask.
I can tell them,
Oh,
Yeah.
what is?
I can, because this was presented to the finance committee, the priorities that are on that list.
Oh, well, the list that we did, okay.
Yes, so is that what you're,
I'll let you know.
yeah.
So I have-
So on the capital needs assessment, the roof was one, which is up there. Carpeting, in the children, carpeting throughout the building, but,
Well,
and,
anything
Yeah, and we've
structural,
got,
oh, structural?
anything to do with the envelope.
yeah, window, and Leslie's been working with piecemeal, it was windows. Were in there, and she's been working.
Right, we've done some window work.
In terms of. I take the time to dig around to answer your question. We reviewed the capital needs assessment. Just this winter in the building committee. And we kind of went through and pulled out what should have happened in their year 1. And then their year 2, their year 3. And, in there, the organization that's built so they analyzed the building in the fall of 2020, essentially wrote their assessment for us in January. So they anticipated that in year 1, their year 1, which was 2021, some boiler, circulator pumps would have to be dealt with. Fuel tank storages, would need to be dealt with, and we did as a committee resolve that. Exterior condensing units, which have not been dealt with, which they estimated to be 7,700, they said needed to be dealt with in 2021. Air handlers needed to be dealt with in 2021. The entryway, the accessible entryway, they also identified as a high priority because of the health safety issues, and that was identified when they didn't attach any value to that, but Leslie and the building committee have been working towards that, and as you know, have gotten some money in the plan together. One of the outcomes of the meeting with the city was that they're going to sort of help with some of the payment of that, so that's happening. Year 2, which would have been 2022, we should have done some of the entryway work, landscaping work. We should have done some repairs on the slate roof, and we should have dealt with the roof on not adding the installation, which I'm hoping we get some efficiency and incentive for. Dealing with acoustical tiles, they said need to happen in 2022. And we are in the process of estimating doing all that with the idea we would put it off until the roof was dealt with, until whatever we decide is gonna happen for the heating system, because all of that will break up the pattern that exists. And, Leslie can tell you that these tiles no longer exist, so we would have to pretty much redo the whole acoustical tile system. So we're in the process of recognizing that, and we would add that, I assume, to the capital campaign and how the project is financed, yet to be revealed by finance committee. Not my job description. Carpets would be happening, all the carpets would be happening this year, which would be 2023. Then interestingly enough, nothing had to happen until, in there would have been their year 2027. They assumed that we dealt with carpet, we dealt with roofing, and we dealt with the heating system in addition by the end of this year. We did their assessment, and clearly we haven't done this. So we're taking the opportunity now to try and get some air conditioning and get all of these needs met and systems upgraded to more efficient systems than more efficient, so they're gonna be cost saving, more efficient, so they're gonna reduce our, as an institution, carbon footprint. So that's kind of where we're at in that.
Discussion about, go ahead, Steve.
No, I just, there are other projects on the list, that's all I'm trying to.
Yes, yes. Portion of this project includes encompass, we go ahead and encompass some of them.
Yeah.
The letter of intent. Have there had a chance to look, you've had a chance to look at it, we have the explanation here. Keep the ball rolling on this, basically. And we'll back out later at I call the liquidated damages, so to speak, is 15,000. So it's like so if any more discussion about it, is there now we can go to a vote to sign it. The draft has Leslie signing it on behalf of the library, which I think makes sense because any of the other physical plant stuff, which that's just generally done, signed on behalf of the library.
Is there any time, deadline or anything by which if, say we didn't act for a period of time, that we would still owe the 15,000, or is it just fluid?
That is not a question I've actually asked. I think the assumption kind of built into this particular letter is that if the library is, yes, we want to do something, we just need to figure out how we're going to pay for that something. At the end of that process, and he, as he said this evening, he recognizes it's a long process for an institution such as this one. That, you know, whatever gets decided is what gets decided, and he's anticipating that it could take some time. Don't think that if it took the library 9 months to be able to say, this is the only path that we could stand by, let's do these itemized items here, I don't think there'd be a problem with that. I think if the library continued to come up with barriers to execution and we didn't ever get back to them for 5 years, I think there would probably be an intermediate conversation and then you know, maybe, I mean, again, they'd be like, so tell me what's going on, and then we may all.
And if I may say, my experience with GCs and in any situation with documents like this, they want to get this project done for us. They want to forget about the idea that we might owe them 15,000 and get just plans and move on and do nothing. They want this project done for us. So if it takes a little time, I'm not speaking for them, it's probably not a big deal. They want to take it to the finish line. So this is really just a legal document so that his lawyer sits down and stops getting at his desk, because his lawyer is saying, you need these, or you're going to go out of business if nobody contracts your work.
Right.
So it's really just a formality, but they don't really, they want to get it done. They're not
Say make
they're not
money
even
if
thinking
it
about
is.
this.
Sure, no,
Yeah, they just want to get it done.
But I just didn't know if there's a certain time or, you know, that's
a reasonable
implicit
That's a good
that we
question.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it will take us time with some.
I think as long as we would maintain conversation and a forward movement, it probably would be a big deal.
I think the way it reads is pretty clear that it's open-ended.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
That's how I took it. Yeah, as long as we're moving forward.
Yeah, if we decided at any point in the future to completely shut the project down, then that would be the point at which we would propose $15,000. Well, yeah, the contractable agreement is reached, well, that's a contract, and that takes over the
Yeah,
$50,000
right,
all applies.
Yeah.
And then you get, it's a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
To terminate.
So before we discuss this, we have to have a motion, so I'm gonna move that we sign the letter. If we get a second, then we can continue the discussion.
Guys, before you do that, I just wanted to make a remark. I have to disagree that there shouldn't be more, that there shouldn't be some sort of time period or discussion of time period built into this. Because while we're all sitting here comfortable, very comfortable with his price, I am at least comfortable with his price, and with the work that he's proposed, there's nothing that says that his partners or his business manager sometime in the future is going to say, these guys aren't going to move fast enough. We want out now. Pay us our $15,000 and we'll go on our way. It's unlikely, but the language needs to be defined. My opinion, I'm just one voice, that says this is what the time period is, or should, or could be. And there's nothing in here that says when we contract him to be the GC and bring in all his subs and all that stuff, which would be another contract, that contract supersedes this one. And I think those two things, my opinion, is they need to be built in to make everybody knows what everybody knows. It protects everybody.
Well, by virtue of the preceding contract, we wouldn't back out of the project and we'd complete it. So then this contract would go away.
Right.
Because we're not gonna pull out.
It doesn't say that. It doesn't.
Well, how do we pull out of a completed project?
The discretion is entirely in the library's
Exactly.
hands.
Yeah,
The library is the sole decider of the continuation of the work.
right.
So if he decides that he's not gonna do it anymore, then that will be, it will have been his decision and we won't own
We
it.
don't own
Agreed, it's
anything.
only if the library says, we don't wanna do this and we're gone.
Right.
Right.
And I think they probably always spent over $15,000.
They have.
Oh,
And the-
100%.
The other thing with the
Recognize
time
that.
frame is that could also hurt us. It can have the
Mhm.
reverse effect. If it doesn't have a time frame, then they can't
Yeah.
hold us to anything. I
With
mean,
these
it's-
sort of projects, I think it's kind of hard to put timeframes because of contractors and supplies. I mean, I totally get the point, Rue, but I think it could be tough, and I think that they probably would not want to put much of a time frame on it because you just don't really know in this landscape how long it will actually take. Like he was saying, they might be able to do it in a few months, but there is some lead time on even ordering some of these VRFs, so it could be even longer, just depending.
Material.
And that would go in the contracting documents.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah,
come back.
I'm misunderstanding the question about timing, I guess. Rue, are you speaking to how long is this letter of intent gonna be valid? Or are you speaking about commitment to perform type language when we actually agree to a particular task?
Right. No, the actions on the particular task, whichever ones we decide to proceed with, would be separately contracted. It's this design, what feels a little bit like a design phase contract. doesn't have any continuation, any termination, any language that says, it says what happens if he can't, it says what happens if we decide not to proceed, but there's no surrounding time frame that says this lasts for 6 months, 9 months, 2 years, whatever is appropriate. And I feel that there should be language that has that surrounds that, shouldn't be open-ended. And again, I'm just one voice.
Problem with setting up
Yeah.
I understand the point.
And we'd have to do another LOI. Right, and that's.
If we don't decide within 2 years to do it, then
Then we owe you money.
we owe you money. Then
And because that, right, it would only,
to our advantage.
right, if they pull out, then it wasn't meant to be, like, I just, yeah, I see it more as a problem for us than.
So with that in mind, the library signing the letter of intent. Say yes or raise your hand. I say yes.
So also Rue and Lori have raised their hand, but Rick is no wrong. Oh, Rick? Oh, he's there, but I don't see it. Do you raise your hand, Rick? I think Rick raises his hand. I don't, do you raise your hand, Rick?
I'm abstaining. I had trouble hearing most of the conversation and I couldn't see a lot of the information, so I'm abstaining.
Rick, I'm trusting that Leslie's going to send me pass me the handouts, and then I'll still be comfortable.
All right, good. Me too. I don't even know what Google Drive is. So anyway, so I'll just abstain.
We didn't have any of that calculator, right?
No, that's.
The calculator is proprietary. They will not
course.
ship.
No, it was your printed materials. If you'll just send me a set for me.
Okay.
Thanks
So
to
we
Karen
will-
and the committee.
Okay.
I can leave.
I lost, I think Rick Florida.
Thank you guys. You're moving this forward. I think there's a lot of people, a lot of staff that are gonna be really happy with you. They might have their
I know Karen, you're about to walk out, but I want to acknowledge the amount of work that Karen has put into her own personal time. I need to acknowledge that. I mean, it is tremendous. You have really helped us. Karen and I probably talk every other day about, it has been absolutely tremendous. And I thank you so much for all the work that you have done on the building continue and this for the building committee and for this project, and will continue to do so. Thank you, Karen. I just
Do it.
Thank you, Karen.
You were, kicked you off our license.
Been here for 2 hours.
Yeah. I just said, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna finish.
Okay.
What time is it? 6:30.
So.
Start this board meeting. How do you want to proceed? I mean, I can.
Why don't you just finish up what you were saying?
Okay, so you can see, I'll go back to the menu. I was just going through some of these ways to show appreciation, and we can continue on this discussion next month, but I think the most important is that you have the board, the works shadow schedule, and that Elizabeth will send it out Google, and then we can continue on next month to talk about.
I will add one comment about under show appreciation part number 3. I think would be a good idea for the library to acknowledge the staff during Library Week and the National Library Workers' Day, as well as involving the board is great, but the library should do something too. That I don't think we have in the past, or at least recently.
Do we know what it is?
Book displays. I know I've done that. That's what we did last year.
I think it's April 16.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think because it's gonna be a prime time to bring in to to the trustees and for some type of event related to that. I think that'd be great.
Maybe a social event.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, I think so. Okay. All right, we have the consent agenda, which maybe can be relatively short and sweet. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Make a motion.
I'll move.
Second, all in favor? Okay, do that. Now, as we said it the last time, or wrote in an email afterwards, we will not call on the representatives to summarize or give comments, but rather just for the trustees who, if they have any questions to ask or the respective reports, if they have something they want to discuss or need clarification on, starting with the monthly reports, we have two actually. And so are there any questions or comments regarding that, regarding the 2 monthly reports? Okay.
I have one thing, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Leslie, you mentioned that there are problems with the public computers that might necessitate replacing them. Have we exhausted the possibility that these are software or OS related problems that can be? Okay.
Yes,
Right.
oh, hours and hours worth of, yes.
And what's the cost of those? Roughly?
They're about, so it's like, the ones I've just ordered 4, actually, Data Defined has them, they're about $800 each, and we got a grant for 2,000, which I had indicated in my monthly report,
Right.
so that'll cover almost 3 of them, but I think we're gonna have to replace the other 4 as well. So I'm gonna test these out and see if it fixes the problems, which I believe it will.
Okay, so 3,200 roughly.
Yeah, so of that, right, so the first, right. Which again, we do have a budget for replacement of hardware, so it's not capital.
Right.
It does come out of an operating budget, so we do have the money to replace, but that 2,000, I don't normally replace, all of them in 1 year,
Right.
certainly, and certainly not all for the student, but that's the reality of it.
Building in,
Oh, I'm not
we
there
should
yet.
be,
No, we're not there yet. I was on the finance committee.
okay, building and technology. Okay, full dose of today. Anything else? Okay, finance, Suki.
I noted on the salary survey research update, that you're gonna come back at that to us next meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, good. But, and not the fringe benefits aren't included?
That wasn't, well, Leslie can explain, but that's not available
Okay.
in the research work, so.
Yeah, I just have no information on, I don't know other information on what
Like
benefits of it.
leaves and, days off and things like that.
There are, they do get that, but I can't, for part-time, earned paid leave is a statewide
Right.
law. So for full-time, I have no way without asking each library directly what their staff gets for full-time. So for benefits, like how much leave, all of that is,
Yeah, right.
so we're really just looking at the dollar, right, not the full
Okay.
compensation package. And we discussed that, right, as finance,
That clarifies, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else for finance? Friends, we didn't have a.
Their meetings next week.
With finance, we have that, or will that be under the treasurer's report, that, change we made this morning about, moving.
That'll be later, that's under new business, we're adding it, it's an adjustment
new
to the
business?
agenda.
Yeah.
It's gonna be under new business.
Okay.
Okay. So friends, no report, right? Governance. Policy and personnel. So,
There was a question on both of them. I was wondering why the question about how much, what is governance doing, what is policy and personnel doing? I think that the clarification, it sounds like you've identified that there needs to be some work done between the two committees to clarify.
Yeah, I think
We've resolved it.
We-
I dissolved the governance committee.
And the Policy and Personnel Committee is interested in having some discussion about that.
sure.
So I think they're requesting that there be some representation at our meeting next month.
Good.
You're on goal for that, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
because you're.
Yeah, I mean, I could, but I think I'm not communicating it that clearly. I think it's enough that it's changing, and we've got members on our committee that don't, have access to everything. So I think it's just at least for one meeting to just kind of discuss what we're doing.
Good.
And we will cooperate.
And yes, it'll be great. Please, Gail, cooperative.
I read that quickly when I.
But it's a change, I mean,
Through. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, a lot of changes going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not surprising. because
No,
there is
no.
a potential to overlap.
I think it's use of expertise. I know that's one thing that always my committee has some.
I think there's plenty of work for both, frankly.
Move on to the treasurer's report.
That's my report. We're gonna be quick. All right, so no surprises at end of fiscal year in June. We are expecting possibly a small surplus due to some things that we knew about. We've talked about this before. There were some staff that were out for an extended time and just a few things. We have met with Bill Brewer here, and he's in the process of our financial review. So once that's done, we'll determine what there may have be for a surplus, and then finance will give a recommendation for where it should go. The endowment is, I don't remember the exact, but it's right around 7.8 million.
I did write the number down from, I know it was in the notes.
We
but,
talked about it this morning. It's right around 7.8 million. as of
I'll get you that
yesterday.
number, Elizabeth,
Yep.
for the minutes. I just didn't bring.
7804210.
Hey, there it is. I thought I wrote it down, but I must have left it at home. We started the day with a library finance meeting this morning at 7:30, so almost 12 hours ago. I think, does anybody have any questions? July is starting off with no real big surprise. Everything's right on track. Any questions on the July, or anything? One thing I'll just say anecdotally is the cash report that we supply. We are working on that. That's a bit of a living document and making it to become a bit more of a balance sheet. We discussed this morning a few things that we think we'd rather see on there. So just take a peek at it each month because it will change ever so slightly. Not just the balances, but also what's in there, because as we determine what we think you should know, we're gonna add it in there. So,
Good.
yeah,
Thank you.
I think you'll like it.
The development report. I had one question, and maybe this for Smith, but there was a reference to the improved or enhanced quote benefits for business supporters. I was just wondering what those were.
Each year we review what a business will get from us, like sponsorships and, public announcements of their support. When I came back, it was untenable. COVID had just made so many tasks in that department. So last year, Hannah and I squeezed it down, but it still was just so much work for the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
So this year we worked really hard since she's been back all of, 3 weeks. We've created one that's much cleaner, much simpler, gives the businesses things like some of the bigger ones, say at like the 1,500 to 2,000, will get a lead sponsorship of both of our fundraising events. No more are we saying, oh, you can sponsor, 2 or 3 children's, and then all year we're trying to scramble and like figure out which ones fit, and this will just be set in stone. Summer reading, a night at the pen, whatever, spelling bee, those types. So it's a lot cleaner, a lot easier. So, yeah, hopefully this one will be one we can recreate each year without having
Right.
to
Okay.
adjust
I
it.
was just curious what it was.
Yep.
So I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, and I can send it out if anybody's interested, since none of you are businesses and don't see it. We'll put it on the Google. No, we'll put it on the Google Drive. You got that, Rick?
I have some facts and figures, that's provided the development report. Annual fund total is at 13,794, which is right on par with where we were last year at this time. Periodical appeal. So far, we've raised 2,454 as part of that appeal, and the year's goal is 3,000. An option to add $25 to the donation to support that program will be on the remittance envelopes this year, which might help us to bump up that number and get to our goal. The fall annual appeal is going to the printer this week, and it will include all of last year's donors and lapsed donors for the last 5 years. And if any of us have names that we want to give to Samantha to add to the mailing list, we should get in touch with her to let her know who they might be. Give her contact information. Again, we'll need board members to help write notes on some of the letters. Donors giving more than 500 will be the focus for notes this year. So, look for communication from Samantha to get that coordinated. And we may have nonprofit postage set up by the time those go out, but we're not sure. And it's kind of looking like that timing might not align, which would have helped save us money on postage. We have to wait for for the postal service. To confirm that you are indeed a nonprofit for them to grant you that permit. So, if planets align, maybe.
It has to be pre-printed in a very special way per the post office's instructions. So if I'm sending the envelopes to be printed this week and we haven't received it, then c'est la vie.
Everybody, put your push.
Right.
You just addressed it a little bit, but new business supporter benefits have been created. It can be viewed on the Google Drive. And then this year, we're going to do a night of the patent for a fundraiser, but we're going to combine it with the Starry Night here. So the event will be happening outside that a lot of people have come to enjoy and come visit, and hopefully they'll come inside as well. It's a ticketed event. $20 in advance, $25 at the door, free for kids under 12. So it hopefully will help sort of, extend that goodwill that's been built on that Starry Night. And then one more event coming up is Saturday, October 21st at 4 in the reading room. It's a John Patton Society event. The guest speaker is the May State Library archivist, and she'll be presenting on Malacca Island.
Yeah, really great.
So it's going to be an invite-only event for JPS members, major donors, board members, and staff. So when is it again? October 21st.
And what was the Starry Night?
Oh, good luck. Oh, when is the Starry Night? So starting December 16th.
15 minutes.
The voice of Karen.
Yeah, December 16th from 5 to 7:30 p.m. will be the a night at the patent.
Okay.
And just so I'm clear, we're still doing a spelling bee too this year, and it's been officially announced to Jonna Stanton's junior English class, in which she responded. They jumped up and down with glee. So we're in it.
All right, and just a reminder that the approved development plan is available
on the Google Drive.
This was a quick rundown, but there's much more information.
I think, did you say 13,000? Is that has been
$13,794
has come in already?
Yeah, so some of that is the periodicals, which is like 2,400, and then a good chunk of that is people who gave after, like we might have said, don't forget to make your gift this fiscal year, and then they gave July 10th.
July.
Okay.
So yeah.
Quite a bit to have.
Yeah, we do. We often have, and we have some donors who just give unprompted before the annual appeal every year. So, yeah.
Oh, they turn off the internet, so you turn off the library, so the internet, so you have to leave the library.
No, but if you don't use it for 2 hours, you have to.
Yeah, not the
that's-
Wi-Fi. Yeah, the Wi-Fi, right, we have a lease, a 2-hour lease on the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we don't normally have meetings this long.
Okay.
We got help.
Okay.
Now, the area school activities, any in Woolwich, West Bath, Georgetown? Anything new? Old business? All right. The new business, first of all, we've got this, maybe Anthony can explain, or which of you wants to
Do
explain?
you have it in front of you, Tommy? Because I don't.
Yeah, so we have, there are two, restricted gifts that have been sitting in a CD for some years, and Anthony has found a better CD product that Bath Savings now offers. So we're gonna move, and may have already done so, move those funds into that new CD product. But we want to take the accrued interest since that's not restricted, out and just put it in our checking account, or in our capital reserve account.
Perfect.
So that's the question for the board. Is it okay to move the accrued interest from those, you know, and it amounts to like $4,000 or so. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, 3,500 plus 111, so 36 would be the amount of accrued interest moved into the capital reserve.
That sounds like a motion from Tommy.
So moved.
So that's a motion.
Is that a motion, Tommy?
Motion, yeah.
Motion,
Second.
all in favor?
Perfect.
Okay. And then-
Everybody online.
Yeah.
It's unanimous.
Steve, you're,
Yeah, the governance, the one thing the governance committee has done is complete a list of nominees for
All right.
the upcoming, annual meeting, and we have to get, or Leslie needs to post that 20 days ahead of the meeting, right?
Yes.
So we need to vote on that tonight, to meet that deadline. As you have a list in front of you, all the current officers, agreed to, continue on. Thank you to Eileen and Michael, who's not here, Carl and Anthony, Rick, Rick Kessler is up for his beginning of his third three-year term, or, Allison Hepler has agreed to start her third year of her three-year term. Peggy has agreed to begin her three-year term. First of her three-year term, because Peggy came on filling in a vacancy that occurred in Georgetown. And Dawn, thanks, is agreed to her second three-year term. So we need a motion to approve that list.
Make the motion. Make the motion.
Make the motion.
Or you make the motion, I'll second it.
all right, Suki made the motion.
I'll-
Yeah, seconded, Steve. All right, all in favor? Yes. Okay, passed. And I would just add, before we go, the next meeting would be October 10th, correct? Yeah, October 10th. And finally, in terms of staff, engagement with the staff, Shannon's giving an author talk
Oh, yes.
Yes,
on
September 20th
September
at
20th.
6 p.m. I think in the reading room even, so I'm not sure where, but yeah, I think that's where it's a great book if you haven't read it. Yeah, if you haven't read it, and she just officially announced that Europa has purchased her second, the follow-up to.
Oh,
And she announced the title, not gonna remember. I don't remember either. River something, but
She was waiting.
Yeah.
last week,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah.
I have read it.
yeah, good.
Tell her that. Let's see.
Yeah, I devoured it. I was like, sat down in one weekend.
If anyone is looking for quick punishment, is there something more you want to ask?
Jack's not here today.
Yes.
Jack is gonna be missing. He's out of town this meeting and next month. Elizabeth is taking minutes.
Right, okay, but you haven't resigned.
No, I would let you all know, because we would need to find somebody else. No, he's just gonna miss the next.
Way.
Okay.
Thanks for the
Thank you.
I hope my wife